everybody. DeVika, I am super excited. We get to talk about neurology and health. And I love that we're touching base on all the seven sexual conversations because it's a great base and foundation for just what you do across everything. So I'm excited for today's conversation.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And it's really interesting because I just want to put in there that I have been managing my health. So if I cough or anything like that, I just want to give space for that. And today is number three. Number three is health and neurology. And um, right before we came on, I was sharing that there's two aspects of this, at least. And that is the first one is who society says, based on their health or their neurology, is allowed or how they're allowed to engage in relationships, and then how we might base our health and neurology and how we experience our sexual self. So, first, just because I'll kind of start with that for myself. Um, I've had a cold. I had cedar fever. I've been battling things, and I was just telling you, I suffer from we,
Oh no. I, oh no. So there she is.
I
I
bumped
will
me out.
not do that again. I will
Yeah.
not do that again.
I was like, what are you doing? You bumped me out. Anyway, when we don't feel well, like I was sharing, I have a vitamin D deficiency, so I feel exhausted. Um, if I had, a partner who, on top of all the things that I was doing, and I wasn't aware that I have a vitamin D deficiency or how to manage that, I would feel possibly too exhausted to engage in sexual conversation, much less anything else. Um, we see that happen when not only when people have colds, when people have babies, when they don't feel sexologically, fit for themselves. We see that when people are going through menopause and they don't have enough lubrication or blood flow, which is part of what lubrication is actually is blood flow. But if we don't know these health things, if we don't feel mentally well, if we don't feel physically well, then how we experience our sexual self is going to change. We're not going to feel up to it, right? Like right now, I've probably been, battling this cold and these allergies and it could be allergies. I've been probably balancing them for about a week. Right now, if I had a chance to choose between taking a nap and flirting with someone, just flirting with them, I would take a nap. I would not use that energy to flirt with someone. And we have to start allowing people's bodies and the way that they feel physically and mentally to actually be part of our conversation when we talk about sex and sexology. Um, and so now I'm going to kind of shift, from the self perspective to then also the societal perspective. Um, we as a society have come together to decide who gets to have sex and who doesn't get to have sex, who gets to experience themselves as sexological and whole and being divine in that experience as a sexual self, and who does not. And we see that when we look at how certain expressions of self, sexologically, have been also treated as mental illness. It used to be that when women had headaches, doctors would actually physically masturbate them to relieve the headache. And it was considered a neurosis. And our sexual desire was considered a neurosis. We've come a long way, or at least a little bit away from that. We're not treated so much like a neuroses, but we do still have that stigma that if a woman or a person with a vulva has what we consider an inappropriate sex drive, we now are pathologizing them. Versus if somebody identifies as a man or has a penis and they have an overactive or a very high interest in sex, we don't pathologize that. We also pathologize people who are neurodiverse. Um, my son is on the autism spectrum. Some people question how would he be able to date or be able to have the same, kind of attraction or interest in other people. And there's almost always this, like, oh, what are you going to do when he gets older? Well, first of all, I'm going to let him navigate that, and I'll support him as his parent, just like anybody else would do so. Um, we not only look at neurodiversity, we look at physical diversity. We look at people in wheelchairs. Maybe they can't have kids, or maybe they can, or how would I have that kind of expression with them? What if they can't do certain things? We start to decide who can and cannot have sex. And then what's worse is we decide their value on whether or not they can have or not have sex. And it becomes a conversation of wellness and also value. Um, so those are two of the areas. But then there are other areas of conversation that seem so sexological, and actually they're health based. One of these is abortion. Abortion is actually a medical conversation. It seems sexological because how we get to the conversation about abortion involves sex. However, the procedure of abortion is actually a medical choice. That is a medical conversation. It is no different than if I were diagnosed with cancer and I and my family were having a choice to provide myself with chemotherapy or abstain from chemotherapy, whether I'm going to treat it or not treat it. And I understand that there's going to be a lot of listeners, if you're listening, that they're going to have a reaction to that. Oh, it's not that. It's, did you just call a baby cancer? I did not. What I said was, it is a medical choice. It is a medical procedure. We can take out all of the religious, all of the sexual things, and it comes down to a matter of people having accessible health care. So I don't know if you want to jump in here, but I know that this is usually about the point that you kind of want to say something. But it really is a medical choice. It is not about just sex. It's about how do we regard people's medical decisions. So what did you
And
want to say in that?
well, and it's really, when you talk about the medical decisions, a lot of people, there's well, a woman's body is a woman's body, and well, I'm a dad too, and I'm this, and there's all these conversations around that. And one of the things that a lot of people neglect in that conversation is what is that, what does that do to the woman's body? Is she, there's several women who can't carry to term. There's several women who have miscarriages multiple times before having a viable pregnancy. And even in that conversation, a male can go and get a vasectomy in one day. He can sign up, he can get scheduled, he can get his vasectomy. A woman has to jump through hoops to, I don't want to have children. I'm 36 years old and I have a 15-year-old and I don't want to start over. But could I walk into and get anything done? No, I could not. And so it really, why are those choices so difficult? Why isn't it the medical of, this is simply yes, I do, and no, I don't? But even with that being said, I think, and you always hear me say this, having an abortion and having a miscarriage, they carry the same weight mentally on the person who goes through that. And they will carry that child with them for years and forever. You will always carry that child. Um, and I think that people really don't respect that space of, I've lost a child, whether it was by choice or not by choice, I will carry that.
Well,
And that's huge.
Well, and I think that's where the medical side and the sexological side kind of clash. Like you said, if it was seen as a medical choice, I either want to keep this capacity or I don't want to keep this capacity medically without any sexual attachment. Just, do I want this capacity? Do I not want to have this capacity? Um, we would remove a lot of the upset about it. But what happens is this gets conflated inside of religion and our system. Our system says, oh, certain religious systems say, oh, you're not supposed to have birth control, or you're not supposed to interrupt the holy divine, because their system is that sex is not about pleasure. Sex is designed to bring about children. So by in that system, once again, inside of that system, now we are interrupting the science that then impacts the sexology. So even though it's very much a medical choice to maintain the capacity or not maintain the capacity, to carry the child, to not carry the child, to engage in this medical procedure or not, it becomes it becomes very difficult to pry that away from people, to say, no, actually, this is actually more of the sexual medical side than it is a sexological conversation. And so then you get into all of your sexual values, or whether you should have sex before marriage, or you're using it as birth control, or whatever else. All of that becomes conflated with, do I want to proceed with this medical procedure or not? Do I want to maintain the capacity to produce children or not? And because we then, we'll get into gender and gender roles, we'll get into that probably next week. But because traditionally cisgender women have been kind of, we've been seen as property. We've been seen as that it's our duty to procreate children. So to not want that capacity, again, becomes sexological and not medical. So, this particular one for me is, for multiple reasons, is one of my favorites, because it really does shape so much, but it's very muddy. And, going further, they're going to get a little more muddy, a little less clear, than your system. But we can always revert to our systems and then our science and our sexology. If it ever gets too muddy, you're looking at your belief system. If your belief system is entrenched in something other than health, other than neurology, then now you're going to make a different choice. And how we shape that choice has a lot to do with, the first one, the systems, the science, and the sexology, which is why I started there. But we get to decide, we get to look at, and we get to have conversations. Why is it that an aging person with a penis is given Viagra and given his vitality, and he's, hailed, as still very virile, but if someone with a vulva, who is not being able to maintain blood flow, that's what lubrication is blood flow, um, then we look at that person like they're flawed, or that they're somehow damaged. And we look at aging men and aging penises one way, but we look at aging women or aging vulvas another way. And that again is a very much neurological conversation. It's not so much a sexological conversation. It's there. It's there. Like, it's sexologically based. And the answer really is in health and neurology, and taking care of yourself, taking care of your health, looking at what your beliefs are medically can and does impact what choices you make sexologically. So we'll look forward to next week. I see that we're running out of time here. And I just want people to know that, I'm opening up this series as a way where for you can actually start to dive into, what are your beliefs? What are your thoughts? How do you approach the situation? So you're not so easily triggered that, ooh, it's about sex, and ooh, it's about morality. Sometimes it is. And sometimes it's just a medical decision.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So everybody, if you would like more conversations on the sexual conversations, definitely over here we have QR codes in the middle. If you haven't seen our previous YouTubes, go visit our previous YouTubes. book with DeVika. She is phenomenal and will be able to help you navigate all of this as well. So thank you all. Have a great day.